Let's go ahead and do another in defense of mountain dog training, this time drop sets. Paul Carter made another post about how dumb John Meadows is, and that drop sets are literally the dumbest thing you can possibly do. First off, there's actually research studies that show that drop sets have benefit. So, that's one of those things I always look at here, is that is there any research to support this? And it's kind of like the whole stretch mediated hypertrophy thing and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, there's research to support it. Dante's extreme stretching, he was doing that before there was research to support it. And I think a lot of times people figured things out by trial and error, and then later on research comes that supports it. So drop sets, this is something interesting to me. So I get the point here that drop sets aren't stimulating the muscle because you already did something heavy, right? I can't remember who it was. There was some power lifter that benched some insane amount of weight, and someone asked him what he was going to do afterwards. He's like, nothing. Like, what assistance exercise am I going to do that would come close to the stimulus I just created by bench pressing this amazing amount of weight? And I get that. That's a valid point, especially when it comes to powerlifting and strength. If you bench press 600 pounds, how many tricep extensions or skull crushers or whatever do you have to do to create the same neurological stimulus for strength as bench pressing 600 pounds? So when it comes to strength, I think that if strength is your number one goal, then a lot of this assistance stuff and a lot of things like drop sets and like, they don't make sense for strength, because most of strength is truly neurological. We know that. Like, let me point something out to you. If you're a beginner and you just started lifting, it would not be difficult for you to triple your back squat. Like, that would not be an impossible thing. So like, you're a beginner, you just started lifting, you currently squat 100 pounds. It would not be inconceivable for you to triple your back squat and squat 300 pounds, even in the window of, if you're a very smart beginner and you have a good coach, you may do that in a year even. I've seen guys who make progress for their first year just putting 10 pounds on the bar every week, and then slowly their progress drops to 5 pounds a week, and then law of diminishing returns. Your progress isn't the same. But I've seen beginners who put 10 pounds on the bar every week for their first couple months even. So no, it would not be difficult for you to triple your strength. Could you triple your muscle mass? No, you could not. Okay. So, if you have whatever, metric we want to use, an FFMI or, FFM, LBM, etc. Let's just say, you have 150 pounds of muscle on your frame. You're not going to triple that. It's not going to happen. And that's a big guy already. If you had 150 pounds of muscle, that was a lot of muscle, come to think of it. Yeah, so even if you had 50 pounds of muscle on your frame, like, you're not going to triple that in a short amount of time. Probably never. When it comes to strength, I get this point. If strength is the goal, drop sets don't make sense. But we're talking about hypertrophy. We're talking about mountain dog training. We're talking about bodybuilding. And, everyone wants to argue back and forth over what's the primary driver of hypertrophy. And I won't disagree. It's muscle tension. Fred Hatfield said it long before all these people were saying it. It's not time under tension, it's time under maximal tension. And so that's an easy one. Like, what's the primary driver? But are we going to deny that there are other factors? There has to be multiple factors. It can't just be one factor. If it was just one factor, then you wouldn't see, blood flow restriction training and KAATSU training. That wouldn't do anything for you. You wouldn't have studies where they put lactate into the muscle and stimulated it, or put phosphatidic acid into the muscle and stimulated it. So metabolites do something as well. It does seem that there is an effect here of time under tension, just doing a ton of volume, okay? But, it's all contextual, it's limiting. And if you're a beginner and you start doing push-ups, yeah, your triceps are going to get bigger. Your chest is going to get bigger. At some point, no, you can go ahead. And this is the thing, too, about training to failure. Do push-ups to failure. Look at any military selection school, and you'll see guys doing push-ups to failure all the time. Are they getting huge? Nope. So at some point, the load does have to go up. And I did a previous video talking about natural versus enhanced training, and I pointed out that if you're drug-free, Dr. Mike Stone pointed out that the load has to be sufficient. So, you're going to have to use loads that are at least 70 to 75%. And then as you become more advanced, the load will have to be 80 to 85% to create sufficient tension on the muscle for it to grow. So, you doing sets of 50 with, 30% of your 1 rep max, or, whatever, doing sets of 20 with 50% of your 1 rep max, it isn't going to make you grow unless you're on drugs, because you have to have sufficient tension on the muscle to make it grow, okay? So again, here we are back to the drop set thing, and it's like, yeah, okay, if it's too light, it's not going to help. But, like I said, there's research to support this. This is increasing your time under tension. This is increasing the metabolic stress. And the other thing I would like to point out to people, and this is very important actually, see, a lot of these bodybuilders, like Flex Wheeler, like doing sets of 25, they're actually creating hypertrophy of their type 1 muscle fibers, the slow twitch ones, which, always cracks me up, because the difference between slow twitch and fast twitch is very, very small. Like, people think this is a big difference. It isn't. Like, we're talking like fractions of a second. Like, the difference between a slow twitch muscle and a fast twitch muscle is fractions of a second. And so, yes, you can create hypertrophy of a type 1 muscle fiber. Yeah. And if you were trying to get as big as possible, you might want both. And in fact, actually, if you're an athlete, you might want both. Crazy concept, right? I know you can't mix these things, but if you're playing pro football, you want to have a lot of power so that when you hit somebody, you hit them hard. And at the same time, you probably want to have enough muscle that you can sustain, a good hard sprint down the field, and then rest for like a minute and do it again. So you want to train those type 1 muscle fibers as well, because sport, well, it isn't just type 2 muscle fibers. I mean, it is if you're doing weightlifting, or it is if you're running the 100 meters, or you throw a shot put or something. But for a lot of sports, if you think about it, soccer, hockey, football, it's a series of sprints with very short rest times in between. You're not maximally rested. At least I never was. I don't remember a time playing hockey where it was like, you go out for a shift and you sit on the bench for 2 minutes before you're back out there again? Like, yeah, that's going to accumulate fatigue. It's not like I sat on the bench and rested for 30 minutes and I was completely fresh for the next shift. Like, I'm on the ice, I'm off the ice, I'm back on the ice. Maybe 2 minutes between shifts, maybe 3 if there was a stoppage of play, okay? So, drop sets increase your time under tension, increases the metabolic stress, right? So we're driving up lactate, we're driving up phosphatidic acid. We're getting more reps in, more volume, and you cannot deny that volume is a major factor. So yes, I agree. The primary driver, the number one most important one, is the mechanical tension, and it's, like Fred Hatfield said, it's time under maximal tension. However, we all know that volume matters. Is anyone going to deny that volume matters? Volume clearly matters. The guy who can do the most volume at the most, highest intensity, the heaviest weights, gets the biggest. Why do you think strongman competitors are huge? And like, look at them, like they're doing, car deadlifts to failure. Goodness, that's a lot of reps. You watch some guy do, 20 reps with, I don't even know what a car weighs when you think about it, because you're kind of leveraging it, but I don't know, maybe that's 500, 600 pounds worth of weight that he actually has to move, because, it's kind of like got a lever on it. And you're doing like 20 plus reps. Yeah, no wonder those guys are big. So, if you think about this, what is a drop set if you're doing it intelligently? Maybe you're starting off with a weight that's 80%, you get 5 reps, and then you strip off 10% of it, and now you're at 70%, and you get 5 more reps or whatever. And then maybe you strip off 10% more, and now you're at 60%, you bang out however many reps you can, and you're done. This is not the same as saying something like, I'm going to do a drop set. So, I'm going to put 315 on the bar, do it for 5, and then, do 135 for 10. Well, that wouldn't make sense. That's too big of a drop. So, drop sets obviously have to have some context to them. But anything that lets you get more reps in, more volume, more time under tension makes sense. And then think about this for a moment. Why do we do things like pre-fatiguing a muscle? Ooh, yeah, that whole, what is it, the Henneman size principle, as you reach fatigue and, you reach failure, that you're recruiting more muscle fibers. So what if drop sets is actually just a way for you to get more work in and get closer to failure? Because it's really hard to push to failure. Like psychologically, it's hard to push to failure. Try to take a set of squats to failure. Like it's mentally hard. Like when was the last time you did a set of squats to the point where the bar had to be lowered onto the safety pins and you had to crawl out from underneath? Very few people do that. Most people stop short of failure. And if you think about this from a psychological perspective, it's very hard to push yourself to that point where you're truly hitting failure. When was the last time you did, leg extensions with such high intensity that you threw up afterwards? It's a hard thing to do. I've done it. But like mentally, you have to get yourself into a dark place. Like you have to get real fucking focused and really like amp yourself up to do that. What if drop sets are just a really great way for you to do it with less psychological barrier, inertia? Yeah. So, in defense of mountain dog training, I think that John Meadows is right. Drop sets are a very effective way for you to do things. I've always benefited from doing stuff like that. I think it's a great way for you to get more work in. And I'll go ahead and point out that even stuff like, if you think about this, it's not a drop set, but, Donnie Thompson doing a deadlift and then immediately following it with a kettlebell swing. It's really similar muscle groups. If you think about it, a deadlift and a kettlebell swing. And if you think about it logically, like you're now also training and getting some conditioning effect out of it. So, maybe the benefit of drop sets is also the fact that over time you develop more work capacity and now you can get more work done. You can get more volume in. You recover better between sets, Like, why did Matt Wenning come up with the Wenning warm-up? Oh yeah, because he wanted to improve his work capacity and his ability to recover. So like maybe doing more volume, if it doesn't have a direct impact on hypertrophy, maybe it does have a direct impact on hypertrophy when you think about it from a 1,000-foot view and you recognize that now over a long period of time, me doing these drop sets and stuff like that builds my work capacity. So now I get more work in. See, if you measure it in just a single workout, who gives a shit? A single workout, what the fuck? You're going to build, 4 grams of muscle? Now extrapolate that across the next 10 years. Oh, yeah. You getting more work in per workout over time, and improving your work capacity over time, yeah, that adds up now, doesn't it? So, this is just something to think about. And there's a lot of explanations behind hypertrophy. There's certainly more than one mechanism. And so, therefore, I think it's very easy for us to see that drop sets work. Try them, do them, watch what happens, you'll grow. Do you need a scientific study to tell you that, oh, the mechanism is this? Or do you just want to know whether or not it works? Like, you don't have to know how a car works in order to drive it. Like, oh, you don't know how a car works? Well, in that case, you can't drive one. I have no idea how a fucking car works, but I know how to put my foot on a gas pedal and turn a steering wheel, right? Do you know how a toilet works? Do you understand the physics of a toilet? Or do you just push the handle and walk away? Yeah, right. Same idea. So you don't necessarily have to know the mechanism. All you need to know is whether or not it works. Does it work? Yes. Do drop sets work? Yes.